So let me take this opportunity to welcome you all this wonderful day and a very brilliant day. And I can see the climate is very, very good. The weather is very okay, especially in Nairobi. It's so cold. Some of us who are in the houses, we are using heaters. So otherwise, we thank God for everything. We thank God for the weather, and we thank God for everything that is happening. Now, Mercy, I would like also to continue with our conversation. And the conversation was like in the other discussions that we had, was about how my experiences were in the mission. And I think we were actually okay, even though I'm told that the clarity of the video was not actually okay. And that is what I'm struggling with. I think my camera has an issue. And if maybe we can get a good Samaritan outside there, maybe he may bless us with a camera one day or the other. But as of now, I think the Lord will just enable us, and we can use what exactly we have to use as at now. Now, as the experience goes, that I actually served my mission, and my mission had a lot of experiences, and we had a lot of ups and downs, both with the companions, and even sometimes you could hear from the areas, the people outside there. And it's quite sad that while I was serving, it was sad that I saw some of the missionaries actually going home simply because they felt like they could not actually serve anymore. They did not understand the purpose as to why they were in that field. And some of them will call their parents and tell them that I don't think I'm doing anything here. I just need to go back home. And I saw some of them actually deciding to go home. And this was when I was actually the assistant to the mission president. Some of these missionaries actually decided to go home, and some of them also went home because of health conditions. They were suffering from the challenges and the diseases that they had, underlying conditions. And because of Kenya Nairobi mission, it is a mission that really needed somebody to be so energetic. It needed somebody to strain a lot. At times you will even run. At times it was mainly climbing, climbing hills, because the roads are up and down, especially when you serve in areas like Kilungu area, whereby you cannot actually see the flat surface. It is either you're going down or you're going up. And the area was very cold, and of course, without saying, mosquitoes were members of the family. Once in a while, malaria was just the order of the day. Some missionaries will suffer from malaria because of that. So the terrain there was very tough, and especially for those who've served in Kenya Nairobi mission, they will bear witness that the terrain was very tough. This was not a mission like we will use a lot of cars every now and then. It either involved, walking. It involved, riding bicycles, and once in a while you will actually board matatus. And because during our time persecutions were so much, at times we will not actually be able to board matatus. So we will either ride bicycles or walk to where we were going. So those were the only two things. And some of the missionaries could not actually put up with that. And I saw them actually, telling the mission president, I think I need to talk to my parents. This mission is so tough. Some of them were relocated to South Africa, whereby at least the environment was a little bit friendly for them. And that is the beauty about President Waldron. He was so caring, and he ensured that missionaries actually, he was there to help missionaries actually, finish their own missions, So he was actually, he faced a lot of things, faced a lot of challenges like that. But for those who endured, when they left us very tough people. They left us, they left as very, very well-groomed and very tough people. And that is Kenya Nairobi mission for you, okay? It was a mission, we say you go in there a small boy, you come out a man. You go in there as a, a small lady, you come out a real woman, It is a mission that molds you, shapes you, refines you, molds you. You are actually refined like pure diamond. And that was the mission all about. But that aside, there were also some other experiences that I felt that were so good, and they were very, very wonderful in terms of, cultural exchanges, that you end up understanding other people's culture. You understand how they are and how they, perceive some things, so that when you live with them and appreciate them the way they are. Okay, you live with them and appreciate them the way they are. I had never had an opportunity to share a room or to share a house with, the white guys. Let me just call them white boys. Yeah, these are Caucasians, Americans, Britons, and Canadians, and mostly we had a lot of Canadians and a lot of Americans, with some few guys from the UK. And I can only remember only one UK face or elder that served during my time. He was only one, a very tall young man called Elder Gray. Okay, he was the only one that I could know. He was a Muzungu from UK, but the rest were either Canadians and Americans, and I think Americans really dominated. Those ones are from Idaho and Utah. Those were the ones that really dominated the Kenya Nairobi mission. So I learned to appreciate the culture. I learned to appreciate other people. I learned to know exactly what other people think of maybe my country, Kenya. And at times it was very funny when you ask an American young man who's just come to serve, and you ask him like, what was your picture or your impression about Kenya? And then they will tell you like, lions and Maasais, lions, Maasais, and forests. That is what they know, and I understood, because that is what they are being shown as to what African countries or maybe Kenya was. He could not actually imagine that Kenya we have an air, what do they call it? The airports, yeah. He couldn't imagine that in Kenya there is an airport, because he thought like they would land just somewhere in the jungle and get a ride from any one of the missionaries to where they are supposed to be. So they thought they will come and proselyte just in jungles and all that. And it was very interesting. At times they will explain very innocently, and you will laugh because you will look at his innocence and how that is what the education actually taught them about African countries. But one thing also I ended up realizing, which I also appreciated, is that once they've served, or once you've served, you end up realizing that you are all human beings. You are all children of our Heavenly Father, and there is nothing so different about or each one of you, because we used to eat same foods. Like they will actually at times they will cook American food and then we will just eat, and then next time maybe we will cook African foods. And I used to cook my companion ugali and sukuma wiki, and I know they ended up liking it. They will ended up like ugali and sukuma wiki, and they will like even chapatis. I know for every Kenyan missionary that served in Kenya Nairobi mission, they know these foods: ugali, chapati, ugali and sukuma wiki, chapatis, they know that. And then they know some elements of pilau, but though in Kenya we are not good in making pilau, because if you want really nice pilau made, those ones I'll give a shout out to my dear friends in Tanzania. Those ones actually they are champs in making really good, nice pilau. But in Kenya there are things like nyama choma, kachumbari, and githeri. You'll eat githeri, and of course you'll have fried fish and all that. Quite a number of, different foods that you will also end up actually learning and appreciating what Heavenly Father has actually provided for his children. Now, one of the greatest thing is that when I went to serve now in Uganda, one thing I realized that what I got was a culture shock. Not a culture shock as what Americans will actually go through, because I know with Americans and other, Western countries, to them it was seriously an all overhaul of what they knew about life. But for me it was just some snippets of different culture shock, because to some extent there are some languages we could speak and they would speak I was able to understand, because Kenya and Uganda, Tanzania, we are neighboring countries. And during those days that a mission president, once he realizes that you come from Kenya, you will not serve in Kenya, he will take you to a different country. And I happened to go to Uganda after, finishing my term as an assistant to the mission president. And I went to Uganda, and when I went to Uganda, and as I was trying to proselyte, I ended up realizing that the behavior of the Ugandan people and the way the Kenyan people behave it's quite different. Okay? Now, one thing, a Kenyan will just walk on the road and they can buy anything on the road, like let's say if it is, roasted maize, that is roasted corn or roasted maize, they can buy and eat while, walking. In Kenya, that is not a problem. It's not a problem. You can just eat while walking, because, they feel like, you cannot waste time. You just have to move even if as you're eating. And that is one thing I got as a culture shock, because there was a time my companion and I had bought something. I think it was roasted maize, and we were eating and rushing to the appointment. And we met one elderly man who was walking on the road, and he looked at us and he stopped us, and he told us, you know what? I know you guys are new and you're not Ugandans. But one of the cultures in Uganda that we don't eat while walking. Okay, you find a place, sit, finish up what you are eating, and once you are done, then that is when you can walk and go. But we don't walk and eat at the same time. It looks like it's bad manners. And that one really caught us, because that old man was very courageous to stop us and tell us that is not what we do in Uganda. And we learned that, and we realized, you can see now what you do in Nairobi, you cannot bring it here. So we started now, coping up. Like every time we'll buy something, we'll just prefer to go back to our apartment, finish up our lunch, and go back and start working again. Now, the other culture shock that I realized with Ugandans, that every time I was visiting members, you find if it was a sister, okay, both elderly and younger ones, as long as they are sisters, what happens when they will greet you, they will actually kneel down. It is something that I never saw while growing in Kenya, and it's quite different, because I never saw that. I never saw. And I saw this elderly woman, while she was greeting me, and we were actually in her house, and she was just greeting me and kneeling down, and I was like, no, you don't have to kneel. You don't have to kneel to me, because I pictured in the book of Acts where, Peter tried to kneel to an angel, and that angel told them that, do not worship me, do not kneel for me, Peter. That angel told Peter that. And I was like, what is this happening? Is this lady what is she trying to do? And I told her, no, Mama, you don't have to do that. And she was like, it's okay. And then at the end of it all, the husband told us, it's fine. I know in Kenya, you've never experienced that. But here, our women actually kneel to men as a sign of respect. They behold their men as kings. They look at their men as their king. And the other thing also I noticed was that the Ugandan women will, most of the time we will visit these sisters. And at times when we are in their homes and we are talking with their husbands and they are there as a family, the elderly mom and the elderly, the mother of the house and the daughters, they will actually, lay down a mat and they will sit on that mat. They will just sit on that mat next to their parents or next to their husband. They will just sit on the mat next to their husband. They will not sit on the chair. And that one caught me. And at one time I asked the brother, like, most of the time I go to your homes, this is what I see. What exactly is happening? And they said, our women are so respectful in the essence that they cannot actually equate themselves with men. They understand their roles. They know what they are expected to do. And they always know that they need to always work behind their men. And they told me that they don't prefer sitting on the seat sometimes because it will look like they are actually, comparing the authority with their men. So they will always want to show that they are submissive to their husbands. And that's why they will always sit on the mat other than just sitting on the chair. And I was like, wow, that one really caught me. That one really caught me. It was really beautiful. It's a very wonderful sign of humility. And I will say kudos to Ugandans. Kudos to Ugandans. I think all African countries need actually to emulate that. And I thought, I wish Kenyan sisters will also, see this and emulate this great culture that is here. And the other thing, which exactly you will never actually wait for a Kenyan sister to kneel for you. You will never see that. That one you are dreaming. They will never do that. Both in the church, I think they will not do that. Okay, they will just greet you and say hello and all that stuff. The only thing that it will show that they respect you, it is the way they conduct themselves before you. But kneeling down to you, they will not do that. It is something. But this one also goes with the culture, and it also goes with the upbringing. Okay, you cannot start telling grown-up, accountable sisters to start kneeling down. Okay, for Ugandans, it begins when a child is still very young. Okay, a lady is taught that if you see anybody who is a man, they begin from home. They start kneeling to their brothers. And when they are married, it is a culture that is in them that they just continuously, when they look at men, they will kneel. And something that really actually, was very interesting is that there was a time we were proselyting in a place called Mukono. I think it's in a place called Mukono. And Mukono is just next to the palace of the king, the Kabaka kingdom. It's just around next there. And it so happened that the Kabaka, at that time, Kabaka was actually wedding. One of the most expensive weddings we've ever had, as written in some of the Ugandan newspapers. I remember reading the newspaper in Uganda, that newspaper called The Mirror. And they were saying this is one of the most expensive weddings that has ever been seen in Africa, and I think in the world. Of course, in the world, I didn't imagine in the world, because I thought it's not a wedding that you can compare with what, the queens of England and the rest of other celebrities that we know. But that is what they were saying. It is one of the most expensive weddings, because there was a flash of gold that was just moving, and it was just billions and billions of money that were actually, used to do that wedding. And I will see when Buganda's Kabaka's vehicles was moving, just arriving to their palace, because as missionaries at one time we went there. It was during P-Day, and we just went there to behold, because the crowd was there and it was next to the chapel. And we saw, because it was also raining. And by the way, in Uganda it rains. It really rains. It really rains there. And we went and saw, and it was a little bit muddy, and we could see women well dressed, but when they see the Kabaka's vehicle moving, they will kneel on the mud. They will kneel on the mud. And something caught me, like, my homeland, Kenya. Yeah? Will people really do that? Will people really do that? Even when it is the president. Some of them will be like, away with him. Let him go do his job. We've already elected him. Let him be. But the Kabaka kingdom, the Bugandas really cherish that kingdom. They really cherish that kingdom. And that is what I actually saw. I saw, like, they were very passionate about the Kabaka kingdom, and women were really kneeling down in the mud, putting on those gomes, these big clothes that the women will put, their ceremonial clothes. They are called gomes. Very decent. It's an African cloth. And they will kneel down. And those gomes will be muddy all over, but they will not care. Because, they are kneeling for their Kabaka. Their king is passing. And that was very interesting. That was actually very interesting for me in Uganda. Those are some of the social things that I saw in the mission, which were very, very interesting, and they were very new to me, that I had not actually beheld. And this is Africa, by the way. Now you can imagine for an American, and for an American and Canadian companions that I had, you can imagine what they were feeling. You can imagine what they were feeling. And if I was an African feeling like that, but you can imagine how these brothers were feeling. Now, the other thing that really caught me in Uganda about their cultural is that the foods they ate were very rich. Okay, they were very rich. And by the way, Uganda is really plenty. It has plenty as compared to, the place I come from, because that is the only place I can compare with. I don't know what Tanzanians will say. I don't know what Ethiopians will say. But as compared to where I come from, Kenya, Uganda has a lot of plenty. Uganda has a lot. It has a lot of plenty. And I came to realize that maybe it could be that is why it was called the Pearl of Africa. I don't understand. Because it has so many. I will see like a forest of bananas. Like just from the time you are entering Tororo. Because you remember when we went to Uganda, we went by a road. All the way from Nairobi, Eldoret to Malaba, Malaba border, then you enter Tororo. From Tororo, you go to, a place called Kibimba. It's called Kibimba, where there's so many rice. I think it's Kibimba. Then from Kibimba, you go to Iganga. From Iganga, you go to Jinja. From Jinja, Mukono. From Mukono, areas I even forgotten up to Kampala. So you look at the richness of the country, and their weather, it's not as cold as in Nairobi. Nairobi is very cold. Their weather is equatorial. It is actually, hot and wet. It's very equatorial, and that's why when you cross the border and you get into Tororo, you will start feeling that weather. There's a change of weather. And even in the missionary van, we were even taking out our ties for those who had gone to Uganda for the first time. So you start adjusting your ties because of the hotness, and you could feel the hotness and all that. And one thing that was also very fascinating, I would see people selling chicken, just like the way we will sell, corn here, like roasted maize. And when you see a vehicle, they will run with the roasted maize, and they will tell you, okay, you can get chikumi, chinane, things like that. So they will sell chicken like as if they are selling roasted maize. And those are some of the culture shocks. And I remember one of the elders that was driving us, his name was Elder Loosely, a boy from Florida. He had actually stayed in Uganda. He was actually in Uganda. He had served in Uganda for quite some time. And he was the AP that was coming to pick me to pick. We were quite a number of us. So they were used to come by road at times and pick us and we move. And those were the wonderful times, because when missionaries go through roads, you tend to see a lot of things other than just having a flight to a place. So we were actually saw a lot of things. And that is one of the greatest indication to know that Heavenly Father is actually a loving God. That with all these creations and with all the beauty that you can see of that country, then you will know actually Heavenly Father is a loving God, and He really loved His children to give them all that beauty. And I understood why Uganda is called the Pearl of Africa, because of the climate and because of there is plenty. The soils are very fertile, and they don't use this, chemical fertilizers. They don't use any fertilizer, by the way. Okay? And one of the best fascinating things that I ever liked about Uganda was their pineapples. Okay? Was their pineapples. They are very sweet pineapples. And I'm told They have the best pineapples, I think, in Africa. Very sweet pineapples coming from Uganda. It's a land of plenty, and it's a land of miracles. A land of plenty and a land of so many things, you know, so many things. I love the place. I love the place. Now, when you speak of the people as a missionary, you know, you interact with a lot of people. So I interacted with a lot of people in that part of the world. And one of the main characters of the people is that they will never actually want to disappoint you. Okay, if a Ugandan, you ask him or her that will you come to church, they will tell you, yes, I will come. There is nothing like no. I don't know if that is their language. There is nothing, there is no vocabulary of like, no, I won't come or wherever. They will always tell you, I will come, I will come, I will come. And if they are honest with you, they will tell you, I will see. Now, when they tell you, I will see, just know they will not come. But they don't have a word that I will not. And like Kenya, if it is yes, it is yes. If it is no, it is no. Okay? Kenyans will not waste your time. They will tell you if they are not interested, they will tell you I'm not interested. Okay? And if they are interested, they will want to see if you will answer their questions. If you can answer their questions, then he will give you the next appointment. And that is how Kenyans are. But Ugandans were like, I will come, but in actual sense, they will not come. But in a way, they were so humble. They looked very humble. But in actual sense, humility, you cannot judge it by the degree of politeness. So they look so polite. They speak politely. And they are not, you know, fast and shouting like Kenyans do. They are very polite and they do their things systematically. And life there is not as fast as the way you could see in Nairobi and all that stuff. Their things are very slow, a little bit slow and very calculative. Very slow and calculative. But in Nairobi, everything is just pa, pa, pa. People are running up and down, up and down, up and down. But their things were just take your time, take your time. Okay, if somebody tells you I'll come at 10, just know you give them 1 more hour, just know you know they will come at 11. Because there's no hurry there. There's plenty and the weather is good. Then why should you hurry? We are not chasing life. Let life chase us. So that is Uganda for you. Okay, that is Uganda for you. Now, I served in Uganda for about 6 months. And luckily, I was able to serve in a place called Jinja. I was able to baptize a few brothers and sisters there. But one of the most significant spiritual experience was when I met a sister who was once an ex-nurse. But I don't know, is it because of spiritual attack or wherever, I don't understand. And she looked so berserk. She looked like a lady who was somehow like, you know, he's lost his brain. And she used to like coming to church a lot. She will come to church every now and then. But people never used to talk to her. You know, even members of the church were a little bit very reluctant to talk to that lady. But one thing I realized that she's a lady who liked missionaries so much. And at one time he brought for us these bananas. They are called memvu. She used to bring bananas to us and she will be like, take this, you're my kids, take this. And we will just take. And sometimes my companions will be like, no, we are okay. But she used to feel very bad that if she brings something to us and we are not taking it, she would be very, very, very mad. And I realized that was the culture in Uganda, that if they give you something and you tell them that you are okay or you don't want it, they kind of think that you do not appreciate them. So when I was transferred in Jinja, the lady was still there. And when she saw me, a new missionary, she came and gave me bananas. And as a Kenyan, you know, you don't refuse what somebody gives you, you know. So I took the bananas and I just peeled it and I started eating it. And she looked at me and she started laughing. You know, she started laughing and she laughed and she was clapping clapping me, giving me a high five. And I was like, how are you? And she was like, I'm fine and all that stuff. But I didn't know that she was psycho. She had issues in her brain that were really disturbing her. So at one time I told my companion, why can't we just baptize this lady? She's been coming to church for quite some time. Why are people avoiding her and all that? So we went and spoke with the branch president. By then it was President Okello, and we told him, look here, we are planning to baptize this lady. And President Okello was like, it's okay, you can go ahead, you can baptize her if you want to, but I don't know why missionaries have been avoiding her, but we have no problem, you can just baptize her so long as she understands some principles, just go ahead. So we baptized this lady, and to my surprise, that she was really understanding a lot of things that we were telling her. And one time when it came now that we were committing her, that she could keep the law of tithing, and she was like, yes, yes, I know what tithing is. I know what tithing is, and I've been paying my tithing, you know. And then she goes to one of her cupboards, and then she comes and shows us some of the receipts that she's been paying tithing even before she became a member of the church. She was paying her tithing to the branch president. And when the crowning event came, that we told her, now you are going to be baptized, because we finished our discussion, she was very happy. And that Sunday, I remember, she was baptized. And after baptism, she started coming to church. But we didn't know that she was suffering. She had an internal disease that was really eating her up. And she was just coming to find some solace in the church and all that stuff. But she was having a serious disease. She had, you know, this cancer that eats women. They call it cervical cancer. That is what she was suffering from, and it had reached stage 4. It was almost, you know, at times she will go to the hospitals and come back, But one day we heard she had gone to the hospital. So when we went there, we found her like very weak, and we offered a blessing to her. So when we offered a blessing to her, we went away. So after 1 week, it is when now the branch president comes and tells us, you know what, that sister is gone. She's passed. And we were very sad, because she was a lady that really loved us so much. She ensured that every Sabbath when she was coming to church, she was always carrying something for missionaries. You know, she was a lady who had a heart of actually giving and all that stuff. So now, surprisingly, when the branch president went to see her, you know, when she died, there was a message she had left to the nurses there, and she had told the nurses that if the branch president or any member of my church comes, please give them this envelope. So only to realize that she had her tithing, okay, on her bed, and that day when she was supposed to come to church to pay her tithing before the disease caught up on her, she was unable now to come. She already had her tithing in the pockets of, you know, she was putting on this coat, and she had a tithing envelope which was supposed to come and pay in the church. And all of a sudden, she wasn't able to, because the sickness was overwhelmed her in the house, and she was picked from the house to the hospital. So while she was picked, she was having that coat, and the envelope was still in the coat. And that is when now she told the nurses, one of the nurses, that if any member of the church, those guys you see them come here, if anyone comes, please, if I will not make it, just give them this envelope. And the branch president was given the envelope by the nurse. It was her tithing. It was her tithing. And that one really caught me, That one really caught me, that she was able to keep those principles even at her, you know, deathbed. She was able to keep, because at times she was sick and she needed medication, but she kept that money for the tithing. And that one really caught me really, really, really hard. And I remember when we went to the apartment, we were so quiet. Elder Haskell and I were very quiet. Each one of us was just thinking. And I could see Elder Haskell really crying, and I was also crying, shedding tears. And even though I had this experience, remember, I gave my experience as I was, you know, taking care of my brother's body while I was still in the mission. And it's the same thing again we saw there. And as we went there, the branch president then calls us and he tells us, okay, family members are requesting that you you missionaries, if you can attend her funeral. And we were privileged to go and attend her funeral. And I remember speaking in her funeral also. So I spoke, and the spirit was so much, and the spirit was very, very strong there. And a confirmation came that she lived her life well, she did well, and that is when we ended up realizing that she was a very great nurse. She came from a very wealthy family. And what she was going through was only just a spiritual attack. And that is something that happens a lot in Africa. Yeah, if some of you may not believe this, in Africa, it really happens a lot. Really happens a lot. People sometimes, and especially close members of your relatives, at times when they see you and they look at you becoming successful in one way or the other, and they attack you spiritually, you know. They attack you spiritually. And that one is so much. So we were told that she was attacked spiritually, and that's why she lost her head. And because of losing her head, she even now could not go to work. Even though at work she was not sacked, her salary was still coming. She was still receiving her salary. But because of her head, she was just, moving around. And the only, surprisingly, that the only place she found peace, irrespective of what she was going through, was in the church. Because at times you'll find on a Monday, she's just seated in the church compound there, in the grass there, placed her sheets down on the grass, and she will just sit there. And when she sees us as missionaries, she will wave and smile and bring us the bananas that she has brought to us. She will always sit in the church compound. And that is something that really caught us as missionaries at that time in Uganda, that is in Jinja. And finally, I actually served for quite some time, and for quite a few period of time in Uganda, because I only served for 6 months. And then after serving there, I was taken again to the mission office. The mission office, because I was now winding up my mission. So when I was going to the mission office, that is where now I met my MTC companion, Elder Tewolde, who was also now an assistant to the mission president. And I really thank God, because as MTC companions, we both served as assistants to the mission president, and that was very well, and that was very good. So that was the time that we were actually now, being released by the mission president. And then at the mission home there in Kampala, where the mission president used to go, because there was a couple, Elder and Sister Russell, they were the ones who were actually assigned in Uganda. So every time a missionary who is being released from Uganda, they will go to Elder and Sister Russell's home first, before now they actually board a plane for you to go back to Nairobi. So I remember that evening we was seated there, and we started again discussing with Elder Tewolde, and we spoke like our mission was very great. We remember the promises we gave each other on mission, that when we were beginning at the MTC. And it is so nice to see that you became the assistant to the mission president, and I'm also I served as an assistant to the mission president before I came to Uganda, which was great. Now that we are being released, what is next? Yeah, what is next? And I remember Tewolde started now revisiting the story we had, that and he told me, Brother Mira, I don't know what exactly I'm going to do next, because after here, I don't know what I'm going to do next, because you remember I left the military to come on mission, and now I'm going, and I don't know if I should go to Nairobi first, or should I go to Djibouti where my family is, because I cannot go to Ethiopia. And the war was still very intense. The war between the Eritrea and Ethiopia was so much intense. There was a serious civil war, and Tewolde was very scared that after his release, he doesn't know actually what next. Where next will he go? And I looked at him and I told him, Toyole, look here, things will be fine. You know what? You just talk to the mission president when he's having an interview with you. Just tell him of your issue. And the rest leave it to the Lord. And I also told him my issue. I told him also my side of the story. And I told him, look here, I do not know exactly where I'm going to begin. First of all, at home, because my family members were not for me to come on mission. But now that I've served and I'm going back now, I really don't know where I'm going to begin. I don't know if I will go back to, that family that accommodated me. I don't know where I will step. And then secondly, I was thinking like, I don't know exactly how am I going to begin my education again, because I needed to further my education, clear my education, and then see how life has to offer. So these things were very dim. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, and I was just waiting for a release for me to go home and see what life has for me. But as long as I know I'm right with the Lord, and I know I did not actually mess up my mission. I served God with all my heart, and I observed the missionary rules to the letter. So that is where we were. We were all stranded. Tewolde was there, and I'm here, stranded. We were only having one more night in the mission, and then the following day, each one of us will board a plane to their respective countries or places or town. And as we were there, other missionaries were there. Some of them were just right from Uganda. Elder Makubuya, who had served in Ethiopia, and he was brought in Uganda. We had elders like Elder Mugerwa, who was also just in Uganda. And as we were bidding each other by, with them, because they came from Uganda, they left the very, very day. After the interview, they told the mission president, you can just release us, we want to go home. So they went, because some of them had good families. They were going back to their families. And I could hear even some of the Americans who were being released. Some of them, they knew. They have cleared mission, and they are going back to their homes, and they are going to be received like heroes. The moment they step at the airport, they will find their families waiting for them, singing hymns. Their sons are heroes. They've finished their missions. Now they are coming home. But me and Tewolde, we were there, just stranded. We didn't know what exactly will happen of us. But as soldiers of God, and as people who served God, we knew things will work out. And so the morning, Elder Russell wakes us up. We take our breakfast, and Elder Russell tells us that now your plane has been arranged to go to Nairobi. And Elder Tewolde was told, okay, we've planned, and what we've planned is that you are supposed actually to go to Djibouti. So we will fly you back to your family to Djibouti. And Elder Tewolde looked at me and he said, Elamir, I don't know when I'll see you again. And I told him, brother, I do not know also when I will see you again. But let's hope that what we did, the Lord will see us again. The Lord will stand with us, and the Lord will walk with us. So I boarded a plane, and I went, as I was flying back to Nairobi and then back to Eldoret, my head had a lot. I had a lot in my head, and I was thinking, now that I served God, I was so much peaceful, even though I didn't know what I was going to face outside there. I didn't know what I was going to face at the moment I reach outside there, but I knew that Heavenly Father is over all. He is going to take care of me. And there I was. I landed in Nairobi, and I saw the APs came and took me, and they told me, now what we can do is that this is what has been planned, that you take a bus to Eldoret, and once you've taken a bus to Eldoret, you will meet the branch president there. And the branch president will be there now to give you further directions. Because I was not going to my family. Which family did I have? my sister's place, I couldn't go back there. And I wouldn't actually wish even to go back to, Mzee Waweru's place, because his children are there, and I had nowhere to be accommodated to. So I went to Eldoret, and after reaching at the Eldoret, I found Mzee Waweru. First of all, I went to Mzee Waweru's shop, and I found him there, and he told me, hey, here you are, you've returned back here. How was your mission? It was fine. I think you did well. I told him, yeah, we tried our best, and the Lord has always been good. And he told me, welcome. So I actually didn't know what was going to happen. So what Waweru told me that you will stay with us for some time as we are figuring out what you are going to do. So you just stay with us for quite some time, and we will figure out on what you are supposed to do. And that is how it came out. So I went, stayed with Mzee Waweru for about 2-3 weeks in his home. And the branch president also came and told me, okay, all will be well. Let Mzee Waweru will take care of you there for some time, and then as we are figuring out how things will be. And as I was there also, trying to look at things around and try to figure out what I need to do. And by then also, President Hinckley, the prophet, had just announced the Perpetual Education Fund for returned missionaries, which was a blessing. But it had not actually been approved in our area. So, especially in Eldoret, it was not yet approved, though he had announced it during our return home. So there was no way we could actually, get the PEF until it is approved in our area. So I came back home. I came back and I stayed with Waweru, and I started now also doing some things. And one thing is that one thing that I will really always appreciate and like is that I will appreciate the returned missionaries who are always in any specific ward. They are an instrument. They are actually an instrument to many, and especially to those that are returning from mission. Because at times psychologically, for you to adjust from your mission life now to a normal life, you really need help. Some people are forced, I know there are some who've been forced even to take some antidepressant. Okay? Because you come from a life whereby, you didn't have to worry about, accommodations, you didn't have to worry about food, you didn't have to worry about things. Yours was just to focus on the work of the Lord. And then after release, you are now there, all alone. You have now to start thinking of how you are going to pay for your rent, how you need to look for a job, how you need to start, paying, buying your own food and all that. So it was very tough. It was very, very tough for us. And I remember after 3 weeks, I went and rented a house. And I was a neighbor to my brother, returned missionary, who was my institute teacher, Brother Makuta Pass. So I rented just a house nearby him because we became so close, and I was like, we needed to be somewhere whereby we are just close. You need a friend to always be with you and help you overcome some of the, stresses that you may have. So I became a neighbor to Brother Makuta, and I started just figuring out what I could do with my life, trying to check out what can I do, where can I go to college. And I started writing even business proposals, the little, skill and knowledge that I had learned in the church. The church used to teach us career workshops way back. You were taught career workshops, how to write CVs, how to write, proposals and all that. So I started using that knowledge, to start, looking for ways on how I can actually secure myself a loan, maybe to go back to school, or secure even myself, an employment by writing these application letters. But it never materialized. It actually never materialized. I never got a job. So I started just working. Anything that I could do, construction work. Started doing construction works and all that stuff, finding anything that I could do, and for me to be able to survive and still continue serving the Lord in the church. So that is how missionary life is at times to many, and I know to many many African missionaries. Most of them, when they're in the mission, they actually serve the Lord with a lot of zeal and a lot of strength. There are so many, experiences that they face and they experience from the Spirit. But the biggest challenge is that after their release, after their release, it is actually very challenging, because at times you are just left there on your own, and no one even wants to care about what happens to you after that. You are done with the mission, it's done, now go home and stay. And at times I tend to think sometimes people always think every missionary is just the same. The way an American missionary will be, like when he goes home, is received by the parents and all that stuff, and the way a convert missionary from Africa who happens to join the church, and none of his parents or none of his members of the family are members of the church, he's all by himself, he's all alone. That after his mission, he's just there in the wilderness alone. He's just there in the wilderness alone. No one, wants to know that what will go through this young man, or what is going on with this young sister. And at times I've seen some of the young men have been actually depressed because of that. And at times some of them have actually even despaired in life. They've served the Lord, and life really hits them so hard. It hits them, and the devil is very serious, because he knows you've been fighting for the last 2 years, propagating and preaching the gospel against him, and now here you are on your own without a companion. He will work on you seriously. And sorry to say, I've seen some people even leave the church because of those reasons. Some of them will just find a reason, to leave and start blaming the church for what they are going through. And some will pick issues with the leaders of the church because of what they are going through. And at times, I always say that at times the Lord, those who are actually entrusted in leadership, they need to seek the Spirit more, so that they may realize if a brother is going on such a emotional feeling, they will find wisdom in the Lord to know how they can actually help the brother to overcome those emotional feelings. Some of them are very bitter about themselves, and some of them become very bitter about themselves, and they feel like nothing is really working, and they've stayed even longer. Even some of them have never married up to this time. They've never married. They've never been married. They've never married to this time. Why? Because of the frustrations they've gone through, and they fear, committing themselves to another partner who will give them more frustrations, and that is understandable. That is understandable. And I went through that myself. At times you become so bitter about yourself because of external forces, because of external challenges. But one thing is that what mission taught me was always to love your scriptures more, and always learn to appreciate your parents more, and listening from the Spirit, and being a prayerful person. Those 4 principles never left me. The love of my scriptures, the love of appreciating my parents, and the love of also developing a habit of prayer. That one always remained with me, irrespective of the challenges. I've slept in trenches. I've slept in trenches. Sometimes I ask myself, is this really me? Right from mission, you don't have a job, you cannot pay rent anymore, and you don't have a place where to go and sleep. So the only place we could do, we come to church, we shower there, because in the church there was water, there was a bathroom. We will shower from there, and then after shower from there, you wash your clothes from there. After washing your clothes from there, then you wait for the activity. So the only food we will get and eat, it was during the activities that the churches will have. Like if we'll have branch work parties every Saturdays, so that is the time that at least I'll get something today, I will eat something today. But the rest of the days, it was nil. The rest of the days, it is actually nil. Empty, you just struggle, move around, I've actually even begged, I've actually lived a life of begging. I've begged in the streets. You know, you are like, now what can I do here? What can I do? I don't have a job. I can't pay my rent. What should I do now? Okay, what should I do now? So at one time I went in the streets and I said, let me just pretend I'm a madman. So I took dirty clothes, and put them on myself, and I sat in one of the streets. And I think some of the members in Eldoret did not know this, but I'm disclosing it here now. That I sat in one of the streets there next to White Castle Hotel. And I sat there. I put a very dirty Marvin with clothes, dressed like a street boy. And I sat there and I placed one of the tins there. And people started dropping coins. The good thing about Kenyans is that they are very generous. And Kenyans are very generous. If you are asking for something, you shall receive. And people started giving me coins there. They gave me coins. At least in a day, I will get about 500 shillings. If it is end month, I will get 1,000. Okay, I will get 1,000. Then from there, I will go buy soap. I will go buy toothbrush. And then I will also go buy, what we call shoe brush. The shoe brush. My shoes, I used to leave my shoes at the church. So that on Sunday, I will come in very early, take a shower. And after taking a shower in the church, dress well, my white shirt and tie. I used to, in the church we used to have this iron box. There was electrical iron board, both iron board and iron box. So I will just iron myself very well, and out of the monies that I begged from the street, I will get at least what do we call it? This at least a lotion, there's petroleum jelly, which I will apply to myself, so that when you are in the service, people don't look at you like somebody who is really suffering. Don't look at you like somebody who is really suffering. I begged there for about, I think it was around 1 week. Yeah, around 1 week I used to beg in the streets in Eldoret, and nobody knew about it. And I never complained about it. I never told anyone that this is what I'm going through. At times when there was an activity and I needed to shower, I will go to River Sosiani. There is a river in Eldoret called River Sosiani. That is where I will go and shower. And unfortunately, that is when now I ended up realizing so many people that I thought they were so prominent, they used to shower in that river. A lot of people that I used to see in town, some of them have ties with the newspapers. But in the evening, they will go shower in that river. And you will think that they are working, they are civil servants. Well, in actual sense, they were not. They were not. And that is what I ended up realizing. This is how people are surviving in this town. So as I continue like that, at one time, Brother Waweru called me and he asked me that, how is life? Where are you now? And I told him, I'm really struggling. I'm really looking for a job and all that stuff. But I haven't gotten a job. I don't have anything. But I'm striving to see if I can get one. And that is when Brother Waweru told me, look here, I have something for you. You can do something here. Can you sell books? And I told him, yes, I can. So he took me and he actually gave me a job in one of his book centers. So I started now working there as a bookstore guy, selling some books with one of his employee there who was called Wellington. So that is how we started actually selling books with Brother, with the Mzee Waweru. So he was actually selling books, I was selling books, and then every month he will pay me around 5,000 shillings. So he pays me 5,000 shillings, and that is when now I ended up getting a house. I rented a house which was about 400 shillings, Kenya money, and I rented a house which was about 400 shillings. It was just a wooden house, which was 400 shillings. So every morning I would go back to Mzee Waweru and work in his bookshop, and then go back. At least I had something to do, and I had also something whereby I could get food. And in fact, Waweru used to buy for us lunch in his shop. During lunchtime, he's the one who was offering lunch. And then transport back to where you came from, both transport at home and come commuting from home to work. Then he used to give us about 100 shillings for transportation. That is 50 shillings going, 50 shillings coming back. So that is how I started. And then from Brother Waweru's employment, that is where now I started organizing myself. Okay, that is where I started organizing myself. I started now, at least I had something. At least I had something to hold on to. And this is what returned missionaries in Africa will need. Okay, this is what returned missionaries in Africa will need. That the moment they come out of mission, at least especially those that do not have, their members, their family members in the church. For those who have family members in the church, that is fine. That is fine, because their families will take care of them. But there are those who come who do not have members of their families in the church. They are all alone by themselves. Starting, for them to start picking up with life from mission, it is very difficult. Very difficult. They may be spiritually, endowed and spiritually, empowered, but temporarily, at times temporal issues can make a brother who is more spiritually endowed actually lose it. And I've seen it. I have seen it. It is sad to say that I've seen some even engaging in criminal activities. And it is not their wish. It is not their wish. It is because how life has actually pushed them, and at times we give a deaf ear towards their challenges and their emotions. At times they will cry very loud by maybe blaming, when you start seeing them blaming the church, they blame people, they pick issues with people. It is a way of shouting that, hey, look here, I'm not well. But it will only need somebody who has wisdom from the Lord, the Spirit of the Lord, to be able to understand what these brothers are going, because it is very traumatizing, and especially at that age, very traumatizing. And that's why for me, if Mzee Waweru did not hold my hand, I would have lost it. I would have lost it. Can you imagine? You reach to a point whereby you beg. You sleep in the streets. You sleep with those street kids there. You listen to what they say. You listen to what they do. Some of them, even at night, they go rob people. And then they come and sit there and they discuss how they robbed people and how these people were behaving when they were robbed, how they were crying. And I will sit there and listen to these street kids, and I will be like, Lord, is this it? Is this the life you want me to live? I'm down. Finished. Down, finished. Okay? From planes, from boarding planes, going countries, and then all of a sudden you're dropped there. You have nothing to do. You don't know what to do. And there you are in the streets, sleeping in trenches. And now you are hanging around with street boys. From assistant to the mission president, to now in the streets, hanging around with street boys. You can imagine how traumatizing it is. You can imagine how traumatizing it is. It was so painful for me. Very painful. We will continue with this in the next edition. And please make sure you subscribe, and please kindly hit a like button if this video really actually edifies you. Please hit a like button as we continue in the second part of this. Thank you very much, and see you in the next part.